for twonk of the year, haven't we? You know what? Just when you think, oh, people can't get any more twonky, something else comes out. So another candidate for twonk of the year, when we finally find out who it is, of course, is going to be whoever has murdered poor Ann Widdecombe. Yeah. Yeah, another candidate for Twonk of the Year will be whoever has killed this poor lady. And honestly, the more I think about this case, I can't, honestly, I really cannot believe that I'm talking about Ann Widdecombe being murdered. You know, as I say, although we might not be politically aligned, Ann Widdecombe, I just remember her all my life. She's been on and off the telly for one reason or another, not only for politics, but for Strictly Come Dancing. As I say, for that time when she challenged Mick Philpott, the evil child killer who killed 6 of his own children. You know, the layabout who couldn't be bothered to get a job, he'd rather sort of rely on the state to support him and his children and his 2 wives. And Ann Widdecombe stood up to him. She was feisty. She was only 5'1". Apparently, she was just a little pocket dynamo. And as I say, lots of things I don't agree with Anne about. She's also anti-fox hunting, a great animal lover. So apparently she lived on her own in that great big house that we've seen. Lived on alone with her cat. Uh, and of course it was in this very remote part of the world, near Dartmoor in the UK. Um, one of those places that people always say, oh, we can't believe that's happened here. It's such a safe area. You don't have to lock your doors and blah, de, blah, de, blah. Well, sadly, it did happen. And details are emerging. It seems like it was severe head trauma. This is what people are saying. But again, they keep saying to us, oh, don't speculate. But the people that are speculating are the mainstream media. And in a lot of the newspapers, they are saying that it was blunt force trauma to the head that killed Anne. We're going to have a look at the last interview she did a few days before she died. And the night before she died, or maybe the night she did die, because we don't know the exact timeline yet, she was due to do like a Zoom interview, an internet interview, and she didn't turn up for it. So it seems like, makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is that because she couldn't, because she was deceased at the time? Is that how they're going to pin down when Anne died? Because she was supposed to do this interview and didn't turn up for it. So now, but then the biggest shock today, of course, this morning that we're waking up to, is the 26-year-old male that was arrested in connection with the case has been released. And the police have actually said they're not considering him as important in their investigation anymore. So not only has been released, he's been declared as not important to the investigation. So he's been cleared, basically, from what, unless that's a ploy by the police to say they've cleared him, but really they still think he did it. I don't think so. So that was a 26-year-old guy from Newton Abbot. He's not been identified yet. It's only a matter of time before the media find out who he is, I imagine, and then we will get to know about him. But so who killed her? The person who murdered Ann Widdecombe, who apparently, gave her such severe head trauma that she couldn't survive it, is out there, maybe even watching this video. It's quite chilling, isn't it, to think of it? Who is it? Who murdered Ann Widdecombe? It's turned into like some, Poirot mystery or Miss Marple type thing. Who murdered her? Who would want to murder her? Personally, I feel it's a case of elder abuse, this. I think it's either a burglary gone wrong or somebody who knew her and for some reason was angry with her. Of course, it could be politically motivated as well. So, because the police, until they know who it is for certain, they can't rule anything out. So this is the speculation, of course, that's going on. Because she did have very forthright views. And you know what it's like in this day and age. You can't have a view, can you? People don't let you have views unless it agrees with them. You're not allowed to have your own opinions. People, debate has just died, hasn't it? It's like, well, if you don't agree with me, you're this, that, or the other. And, I found that on my channel. I've had chatters who, they're with me for ages. And then I say one thing they don't agree with. I'm not allowed to have that opinion on my own channel. It's like, and they have a hissy fit and off they go. Well, I have my opinions. I have my opinions just like, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. Nobody tells me what to think, and I don't tell anybody else what to think. I'll say what I think, and I can hope that people will come round to my way of thinking. But if they don't, well, that's their prerogative, isn't it? One thing you can definitely say about Anne is she didn't hold back on her opinions. And that's something I admire her for, to be honest. I like people who really believe in what they say, even if it isn't what I agree with. If they're not doing it for kudos, they're not doing it for effect, they're doing it because they genuinely believe it. I have a lot of respect for that. Anyway, what we do know for certain is Ann Widdecombe is deceased. And I've been thinking about that. I know, they said don't speculate. That's impossible. You're going to speculate. Of course you're going to speculate. Don't you think the whole thing, more I think about it, is strange? Because yesterday morning, reports were coming out, weren't they? About Ann Widdecombe has died at 78. And because 78, even though, of course, now when you think about it, she was very fit and hale and hearty, and it should have perhaps seemed stranger to us when it was announced that she had died at 78. Do you not think it's strange that it would get released that she had died before the police had, decided it, or said that they decided it was a murder investigation? Don't normally, in cases like this, well, they must have known it was a murder investigation, surely from the start. Although some people are saying that initially it was thought that she'd fallen and banged her head because she's got this head trauma and she was bleeding a lot. It wasn't clear initially that the head trauma had been caused by someone hitting her over the head. And old people do have falls. Well, all people, not only old people. People do fall. Most accidents happen in the home, don't they? So do you think they were, first of all, operating on that assumption that she'd had an accident? Because I think it's really unusual for sort of almost like a bitterist to come out first and then afterwards, oh, by the way, it's a murder investigation. Strange, isn't it? Anyway, then they arrested this 26-year-old man in Newton Abbot. And now he's been released and he's been dismissed from the investigation. So who was he? Why was he arrested? You presume they had information to lead them to him. So it's a very odd case. Reminds me so much of the Nancy Guthrie case. Now, what's happened to Anne is more normal, if you like, in a burglary gone wrong situation. If a burglary goes wrong and the burglar panics and does some harm to the person in the home, they normally just can't wait to get out of there and they flee the scene. They certainly don't take the body with them. That is unheard of. So that's why it's strange in the Nancy Guthrie cases, because we still don't know where Nancy is even. And if that was a burglary gone wrong, in my opinion, Nancy would have been left there in the home, like Ann was. So this one does seem more, not likely is the wrong word, it's more possible that it could be a burglary gone wrong. It fits into the criteria quite often if people break into homes and they get disturbed and, everything goes pear-shaped, then they will just leg it from the home, but they don't take the body with them. So is that what happened? Because you know what, at the end of the day, as we know, she might be a little woman in a height sense, but she didn't pull any punches. I think it's quite likely that Anne might have been disturbed by a burglar, and she would have fought. She wouldn't have just said, "Oh yeah, come in and take everything I own," would she? I don't think. I think she would have fought and she would have got angry, and maybe that's how it all ended up going wrong. But the other thing that is worth saying is it's rare for burglary to take place when somebody is in the home. So you look at Anne's property where she lived, it's very remote. There'll be times when Anne would have been out walking. She loved walking. Maybe she wasn't walking as much these days. Could have gone into the village or something like that. I do feel that this is maybe a personal thing, though, against Anne. I don't feel like it's a political thing, but I'm not, I'm just talking about the way I feel. That doesn't mean to say that it's not a political thing. Could be somebody angry with her for her views. She was quite sort of, well, I'd say anti-gay, but we've had Dan Wootton, that was an hour of my life I'll never get back again. I did watch the Dan Wootton podcast because he says, sorry. Oh, right, sorry. Just wondered what that was. He says that she wasn't anti-gay because she's got this reputation of being anti-gay. She was a committed, puritanical Christian, apparently. A Catholic. She converted to the Catholic faith and she was very devoted to the church. Now, Dan Wootton says she wasn't anti-gay at all. That he obviously is openly gay. And he said she was very kind to him when he was going through his worst time, when he was booted out of ITV for being, really shady character. He made us, Dan Wootton is such a hypocrite because he's always saying, "Oh, I was going through this terrible time. Everyone was attacking me." Dan Wootton attacks everybody. He's horrible about Meghan and Harry, and whether you like them or not, he's so bitchy about them. And then he's complaining when people are bitchy about him. Don't be a bitch. You don't want people bitching about you. Don't be a bitch. So Dan Wootton, though, he insists Ann Widdecombe was his friend. She wasn't anti-gay. She's had a lot of good, plaudits from people saying that she was misunderstood, like she was quite a puritanical Christian, but it was only because she wanted the best for people. I don't know. I didn't know Anne, but most people that met her, even people who didn't agree with her political views, was saying that she was a really nice person, kind person. She was always kind to waiters, waitresses. She never sort of put herself above anybody else, etc. So I don't know. I didn't know Anne, but the things that impressed me about Anne was, as I say, was the way she stood up to Mick Philpott, and also the way she poked fun at herself on Strictly Come Dancing. She didn't take herself too seriously. So yeah. Hi, Paul. Hi, Darren. So Darren says, I might have drove through or passed through the village at that sort of time. Oh my God. Well, you might get visit from the police, Darren, because they'll, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I expect they're going through any CCTV, or I don't know if they've got any license number recognition cameras in that area. I just don't know what's there or what there isn't. I think Anne did have cameras. So let's have a look at this. What they say in the Sun. Let me read you this. Read you this to you. So, according to the Sun newspaper, and I know it's the Sun newspaper, we've got to take it as it comes. But Anne was found by her carer. This is what's saying. So she had a carer obviously going in. Let me just share this. But the more important thing that fastened in on this article is that apparently, now how they know this, there must be cameras. There must be cameras, because otherwise, how do they know what the Sun is reporting, which is that a man turned up at her house in hiking boots. Look, a man in hiking clothes arrived at Ann Widdecombe's remote home. I actually don't think it's sharing. Just let me check. How do they know this if there's not cameras? You know, to commit a crime, anyone going to her home to commit a crime, wouldn't they have known there were cameras? God, it's so like the Nancy Guthrie case, isn't it, really, in that way? Would they have turned up at her house? Oh, not you, Darren. Not you, Darren. Oh, you mean the 26-year-old? Because I think you've written there, I might. That's what I thought you were saying, you might. But yeah, the 26-year-old might have been caught on cameras. Or it may be the 26-year-old that was the guy that turned up in hiking boots. Could just be somebody who was walking past and wanted, I don't know, maybe his car broke down. I knocked on a lady's door once. I was going from Reading to Manchester, and the very old car that I was driving broke down. And I had to start walking with my suitcase and my cat. I had my cat in a cat basket, the cat I had at the time. Lucifer, his name was. Off I went, and there were a couple of houses. It was quite remote sort of countryside. And there were a couple of houses, and I had to decide which, because this was before mobile phones. I had to decide which house I was going to knock on their door. Anyway, I picked one of them. I went and knocked on the door, and this old lady came to the door. When I think about it, now, see, I was, 28 at the time. Didn't even occur to me that she would have been terrified of me, because she didn't know if I was like genuinely my car had broken down or not. I think the cat probably persuaded her, because there's not many burglars that will go around someone's house with a cat in a cat basket and all their dirty washing that they were taking back to Manchester for their mum to wash. Anyway, this lady, she came to the door, and I just said to her, look, can I use your phone, because I've broken down just up the road. Anyway, she let me into the hallway where the telephone was, when we had landlines. And I phoned, I can't remember, I would have phoned Green Flag probably, or whatever my recovery phone was. I can't remember, it's that long ago. But and she went into another room. She sort of locked me in the hallway, and she went into another room. She lived there on her own. It was quite a big house, very similar to Anne's house. And when I'd finished my phone call and I said to her, "Love, thank you so much." And she said to me, "Why did you come to this house?" She said, "Because you're not the first person that I've had to call at the door here to ask to use my phone who's broken down." And I said, "Well, your house just looked more inviting." And it did, there were other houses, but her house just, it had a good feel to it. That's why I went to her house. So I was safe and she was safe, but she didn't know when I rang, and that was very kind of her to let me in and use the phone. Because, yeah, I could have been a burglar. I could have had somebody waiting behind me who, as soon as I went in, they went in, bashed her over the head and stole all the valuables. So, it's, sad, isn't it? When you get older, and thing is, when people get older, they want to be independent. Anne had bought that property specifically to retire there. Wasn't it called Widdicombe's Rest or something like that? She'd named it. It was her retirement property, and she thought she would be safe, but she wasn't. She wasn't safe in her own home. Now, I just still think it's likely it might be somebody who knew her. But anyway, just let me go back. Hi, Sean. I think did I say hello, Sean? Hi. Yeah, Ann Widdecombe is a famous politician in the UK. Quite a controversial figure. She's right-wing as right. You can't get much more right-wing than Ann Widdecombe. She was instrumental in Brexit, all those things. So she's got controversial views. Not every, as I say, as far as I'm concerned, politically, I wouldn't agree with her on many things, but she is definitely a conviction politician. Whatever she says she believes in. She's also anti-fox hunting. She appeared on Strictly Come Dancing. She's done quite a bit of reality TV. She came second in Big Brother. Celebrity Big Brother, so she's famous for that. But yeah, she was a Tory, but she then joined the Brexit Party. And recently she's been part of the Reform Party, Nigel Farage and all that. I mean, if you don't know about British politics, but yeah, she's very famous in the UK. And she's been famous for a long time. I think why I'm like reeling from this is, my whole life really I've known who Ann Widdecombe was. She's like one of those politicians. She's always on the telly intermittently. So, and yeah, she is in politics now, but not in the same way. I think this is someone she knew. How did they even get into the house for a start? Anyway, let me just read you this. Because she's not stupid. I don't think she'd let someone into the house that she didn't know. So yeah, man in hiking clothes apparently arrived at Ann Widdecombe's remote home in the middle of the night, just hours before her body was found. And the thing is, Sean, as well, what's strange about this case is just yesterday morning, God, it feels like weeks ago now, it was announced that she died, but not that she was murdered. And there was all these, eulogies coming out, people saying things about Ann Widdecombe. And because she was 78, nobody really challenged that she might not have died of natural causes. Then later on yesterday, about 5 o'clock in the evening, suddenly the police are saying we've launched a murder investigation after her death had been announced almost as a normal death, if you like. So it's really odd. Anyway, this is Widdicombe's Rest. This is the property she bought to retire to. It's very much on it's near Dartmoor, which is a very isolated spot. And then someone was arrested, 26-year-old was arrested, but they've been released. So yeah, Anne lived here, right on the border of Dartmoor National Park, 11 miles from her home, but he's been released. And not only he's been released, but the police have announced that they're not regarding him as anything to do with this investigation. So initially police believe she died in a fall or accidentally, but later they announced they're investigating the tragedy as murder. It's understood that she was found covered in blood after sustaining a serious head wound at her remote home on Dartmoor yesterday, and the suspect was taken into custody. But we know now, we went through all this yesterday. This is the house from aerial view, so you can see it really reminds me of Nancy. You know, look at the house, swimming pool, you know, a luxury property, but she lived there on her own with her cat. Do you know, I'm sorry, I don't care how much money I had, I don't think I'd like to live so isolated as that. Yeah, I think you're right, Louise. I think what happened was maybe when the police went I think maybe what happened was that when the police first saw her, they thought she'd had an accident, like it says there. Maybe it was when they got her to the pathologist that the pathologist said, oh, hang on a minute, this is not the result of a fall. Somebody's hit her over the head. We don't know. We'll find out, I suppose. Now the person that was arrested, because even though they've been cleared now by the police, that'll be, as you say, that'll have been traumatic for them, won't it? Will there be, why were they arrested? But anyway, these are things we'll find out sooner or later. Now I want to show you, what do I want to show you? So many things. So I'm going to show you in a moment the last interview she did a couple of days on Talk TV, a couple of days before she died. She did an interview. We're going to watch that. But the night before she died, the very night before she died, she was supposed to appear on Channel 5. But they couldn't get hold of her. And now it's thought she was probably dead at this time. Horrible, isn't it? So on the Channel 5 they mentioned it. Let me show you. Let's listen to the video. What they said. He says we were supposed to have Ann Widdecombe on, but she hasn't turned up.
Say that there was no chance of Ann Widdecombe. I'm going to guess that.
Sorry, it's whirring. So she was supposed to be on to talk about this political shambles between Nigel Farage and Count Bimface. Do you know what? I can't even believe I'm having to say Count Bimface. But this is what's happening, isn't it? Nigel Farage. Anyway, let's not talk about that. But she was supposed to go on to Channel 4 on the Matt Allwright show. In defense of Nigel Farage, because she loved Nigel Farage. Oh, come on, don't worry. Why is it not showing? Why is it not showing?
We put Anne as a Reform spokesman in the Farage. On some other occasion, Anne, wonderful stuff. Time for our next debate. Should Andy Burnham raise taxes? Say that there was no chance of Ann Widdecombe. I'm going to guess that we put Anne as a Reform spokesman in the Farage column, but she didn't show up, unfortunately. But we look forward to speaking to you on some other occasion, Anne. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, he's peed off, you can see. So, yeah, she didn't turn up for the interview. When I say didn't turn up, she wasn't supposed to be in the studio. She was supposed to connect online. She didn't connect, so they tried to get in touch with her and they couldn't get in touch with her. So, yeah, and it's thought that the reason was that she was probably dead at that time when she was supposed to appear on this interview. How awful, isn't it? Now, I'm going to show you the last interview she did with Talk TV. So a couple of days before that, she did an interview with Talk, go down in history as the last person, the last interview that Ann Widdecombe did. And we're going to have a look at that. Hang on. So, yes, she was still, look, complicated situation, sure. Nigel Farage, who's the lead, and Ann Widdecombe, you know, she's a supporter of his. He's been investigated for lots of dodgy things. So his way of dealing with being investigated is he's resigned as an MP, but he's standing again immediately. But his whole purpose of doing it is just to put a stop to the investigative purposes, the investigation. But now the other political parties, they won't stand against him because they say it's all just a plot to stop being investigated for his dodgy dealings. So all the main political parties have said that they're not going to stand. So it looks like the only people that are going to stand is Nigel Farage, who already was the MP for that constituency anyway in Clacton, Count Binface, who is like a protest guy, and I think the Monster Raving Loony Party or another protest group. So we're whole of Britain or most of Britain is hoping that Count Binface wins, because Nigel Farage currently is not very popular because he's as dodgy as anything. He's, you know, he presents himself as a man of the people, anti-establishment. He is the establishment. He's a multimillionaire with several properties. He campaigned for Brexit, but he's got a European passport, as have his daughters and his wife. And he's, you know, he's in Putin's pocket. Just, you know, but some people think he's brilliant. But there you go. Anyway, so Anne did support him. And anyway, this is Ann Widdecombe's last interview from Wednesday's breakfast show, where she said, now she did, it was quite contentious. She stated she has no faith in parliamentary processes to come to fair conclusions, and as such understands why Nigel Farage has resigned as an MP. So let's have a look.
I've got very little trust in parliamentary processes. And if you look at this government, which has a majority on that committee, if you look at this government, you know, look at the way that it's reacted when it's felt vulnerable, you know, changes to political donations, cancelling local elections, we all remember that. You know, going for votes at 16, loosening of Nigel is challenging establishment, and he's obviously a people, and I think that just about sums it up. I'm delighted that he's taken this, because the attitude previously of politicians was you couldn't go away, you just carried on until your position became untenable. He's taking, and I drew the analogy with policy decisions earlier, he has taken this decision because he wants an end one way or the other. And he's right to do this. You know, they're going to lack credibility if there's a by-election and a huge majority for Nigel. There's going to be a great lack of credibility if he's still handed and pursued.
Does this establishment of which you and Nigel speak actually exist?
Yes, I believe it does. Now, I didn't always believe in that theory, but I do think now that different parts of the establishment act in ways which I think are extremely questionable. We saw it in the banking scandal. And suddenly you realise it wasn't just Nigel, a load of other people as well who didn't have the ability to publicise and fight. So yes, I think the establishment is there in that sense. Yes.
However, Anne, it's not clear what will be achieved from this by-election, particularly given that the other parties are not standing. So therefore, if it's just Farage versus Count Binface, this is not just politics, is it? It's student politics, the pantomime.
No, it's very... up to the other parties, we know why they're not, and all the rest of it.
Is not serious politics, Anne.
Can I finish? So that's why they're not standing. No, it's their...
So, Sean, Nigel Farage stood down and then put himself forward immediately again, because he's trying to stop the process of investigation into the 5 million donation that he was given. And now the only person who's standing against him, because the other parties are saying, no, we're not having anything to do with this. You were the MP for Clacton. There's no need for a by-election. We're not standing anybody in the only person who's standing against him is Count Binface. This is what UK politics have been reduced to. And yes, she did vote. She was in government under Thatcher. She was like a junior minister. But yeah, she adored Mrs. Thatcher. She's very similar to Mrs. Thatcher in, as much as, again, I don't agree with anything that Mrs. Thatcher did. Her policies to me are just terrible. But she was a conviction politician, at least. She worked hard. It wasn't, she believed in what she did, even if I don't believe in what she did, But now this is what we're reduced to in UK politics. We've got a by-election coming up, which is Nigel Farage against Count Binface. Do you know what? It's just like, what we look like in the eyes of the world. Do you remember when we used to be respected? And then we've had a prime minister that is at least respected around the world. And we're getting rid of him now, and we're getting Andy Burnham in. It's crazy what's going on. And then in the middle of all this, Ann Widdecombe gets murdered. And we don't know why she's been murdered. Has she been murdered because of her views? Is it somebody she knows? Is it a burglary gone wrong? We have no clue.
This is serious politics. In this sense, Binface isn't serious politics together. But what Nigel will spend that campaigning period doing is what he told us he would do. He will clear his name, and he will ask the peaceful people of Clacton to express a vote of confidence in him. That is not pantomime. That is taking the initiative, thank heaven.
So that was her last interview, just literally 2 days before she was murdered. So, and then she was supposed to, that very night before she was murdered, she was supposed to be on another interview, and she didn't turn up for it. Very sad. Very, very sad, isn't it? And it seems like when she was supposed to be there for that interview, she was probably dead. Awful. Right, I need to just put a couple of windows down. So who was the guy who turned up at her house in hiking boots? And how do they know that somebody turned up at her house in hiking boots? Odd. So the other thing that I want to show you now, this was Nigel Farage's tribute to her. Notice how he makes it all about him.
best known female politician in
Oh, stop worrying, come on.
Britain since Margaret Thatcher. Many, many years in the
Now, just a total aside, I don't think Nigel looks very well. I've got this feeling he's not very well. I don't know, there's something not right with Nigel. You know, now I hope he's okay, because I wouldn't wish anything bad on anyone, not even Nigel Farage, who I can't bear, to be honest. But yeah, this is his tribute to Ann Widdecombe.
Conservative Party. Then she joined me in 2019 in the Brexit Party, was an extraordinary colleague in the European Parliament, then beyond that into reform. She reached, of course, way beyond politics with Strictly Come Dancing, Big Brother, her theatre tours. She wasn't just a politician, she was a celebrity. The thing about Anne is, she never ever sought popularity. She stood up and fought for what she believed in. A devout Christian and somebody with strong socially conservative views. Perhaps not popular in modern Britain, but that is what Anne believed in. And she could stand on a stage and give a speech. Didn't need prompts, didn't need notes, knew in her heart and her mind what she actually believed. There were times over the years when she and I disagreed, and she never, ever, ever let me get away with anything. But our disagreements would be in private, not in public. And that was Anne. Loyal. She understood that it was a team game and how the whole thing worked. I watched her with drivers, waiters, waitresses. She was kind to everybody. Frankly, this was somebody who gave her life to public service, to fighting for the things that she believed in. She herself would not have harmed a fly. And I'm deeply, deeply upset by the nature of her death. I'm pleased that the police have caught somebody, a 26-year-old man. We don't know what the political motives are, whether they exist at all. Was it a burglary gone wrong? We just don't know. And I'm not going to speculate at this stage. I'm pleased the police are doing their job. Our nation is a much, much poorer place without her. Reform UK is certainly a much worse place without her. I was expecting to see her in Clacton over the course of the next few days. Sadly, that is not going to happen. Rest in peace, Anne. A remarkable, principled woman, and a truly dreadful way to die, and a terrible reflection on modern Britain. And I do fear that for anybody in public life, or especially the political space, things have become even more dangerous today.
So that was Nigel's tribute to Anne. So it was nice that he did a tribute, but I do think he, as usual, made it all about him. Right, now I've got another couple of things I want to show you. So yeah, we've had two politicians that were murdered. David Amos, he was, Anne spoke at his funeral actually. His daughter has made a nice tribute for Anne and said how supportive Anne was when David Amos was murdered by an extremist Islamist in his constituency. You know, he was doing his, you know, the MPs do surgeries where they talk to their constituents. He was stabbed in his constituency office by an Islamist supremist or radical Islamist. And sorry, I'm just, there's breaking news coming out on Sky News. I think, oh, what's happening now? Dermot Murnaghan has died, who's a famous presenter on Sky News. That's a shame. He was a good presenter. But anyway, so yeah, and Jo Cox was another MP that was murdered, and she was murdered by a right-wing extremist. So we've had two MPs murdered, one by an Islamist extremist and one by a right-wing extremist. So, you know, just crazy, isn't it? You know, you shouldn't be murdered for your views, whatever they are. You know, no wonder nobody wants to be an MP, because this is the problem nowadays in Britain, in my opinion. Is nobody wants to be an MP because it's dangerous. And although we think they earn a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money compared to what they could earn in other sections of, you know, like in the city or stuff like that. We don't have any conviction politicians anymore. They're all career politicians. And, you know, and that wasn't me burping, by the way. That was the bloody German Shepherd just let out a massive burp. Yeah, what are you doing burping? And for all the faults or for whether I agreed with her or not, she believed in what she said. So we don't. The only conviction politicians we have these days are the ones that have actually got convictions because they're done something wrong. Ah, my God. So yeah, then Dermot has died. I'm just watching him. Oh God. Very good presenter. He had cancer, so he died. Oh, it's just one thing after another, isn't it? Anyway, the key thing is who has killed Ann Widdecombe? If it wasn't the guy that was arrested, he's been released. Who did it then? Who has murdered this woman? Did somebody just turn up at her house in the middle of the night or in the evening? It would have been probably. And she let them in. Why did she let them in? Or was it somebody she knew? Oh my God, I hope this isn't going to turn into another Nancy Guthrie case where 6 months on we still haven't got the answers. How awful for a family. You know, because first of all, when the police announced they had someone in custody, we thought, oh, well, at least they've got somebody. You know, at least they've got somebody for doing this. Don't you start barking. No. You know, and now it turns out they haven't got anyone. Haven't got anyone. That person is nothing to do with it. So who's the next suspect? No? Yeah, sure. The dog's getting annoyed with them now. She probably thinks I've been on too long. Oh my God, it's a crazy world, all right. Isn't it? Crazy, crazy world. I still can't believe I'm on here talking about Ann Widdecombe being murdered. Just, it's like surreal, isn't it? Completely surreal. Just the weirdest. Oh, Kelly, a well-known Australian presenter, died this week as well. Yeah. Let's get Nigel off the screen. I was going to have a look at Dan Wootton, but do you know what? I can't even face it. I'm not having a look at Dan Wootton talking because I'll just get angry about him. I'll just get angry about Dan Wootton. So I'm not watching him. I watched it. That was an hour of my life. I'll never get back. That watch last night of his tribute to Ann Widdecombe. And oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. This is a parallel universe we're living in. Oh my God, every day I'm sort of like, oh my God, what's going to happen today? What's going to happen today?